Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are plunging into some really strange territory. We've got a set of documents that, well, they challenge a lot about how we think about time, about information.
Yeah, it's quite a stack. We've got these research notes, supposedly, on a predictive algorithm called RALF1.
And right alongside that, a transcript. A very weird interview transcript with someone or something claiming it's from the future.
An unusual pairing, definitely. One's
Yeah.
all physics and math, the other sounds like science fiction. Or something else entirely.
Exactly. So our mission here really is to take these two very different sources and kind of hold them up to each other.
See how they resonate. Or maybe clash.
Yeah, we need to understand the concepts, especially this pretty wild idea in the RALF1 notes about interacting with the future.
Right.
And then look at that interview transcript through that specific lens.
See if any connections jump out or maybe just, contradictions that make you think.
Precisely. Okay, let's unpack it. Starting with RALF1, the documentation doesn't just call it a geophysical instrument, which you might expect, right? Something measuring forces.
No, the term used is mathematical observer. That's what its creator, Vadim Chernov, supposedly called it.
A mathematical observer. That sounds significant, not just passive.
Right. Suggests it's not just collecting data points, but maybe interpreting reality somehow in a fundamental way.
So how does it supposedly do that? How does it get these predictions the documents claim it makes? What's the mechanism?
Well, the core idea seems to be it analyzes Lorentz forces.
Oh, Lorentz forces. That's electromagnetism acting on particles, right?
Exactly. And the theory here is that RALF1 is sensitive enough to pick up on incredibly weak, really subtle fluctuations, fields that are normally just, background noise.
Okay, so it picks up these tiny signals, then what?
Then it supposedly applies Occam's principle.
Ah, Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the best one.
Right. So RALF1 allegedly uses this principle to sort through all the complex data from these subtle fields, looking for the most straightforward pattern or underlying explanation.
And that's how it supposedly reveals these hidden variations, the things that lead to predictions about, I don't know, financial markets, wars, even medicine.
That's the claim of the documents, yeah. Finding this simple signal hidden in the noise, revealing trends before they're obvious.
Finding order in the apparent chaos.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. The source material, it doesn't just stop at prediction.
Oh.
It draws these explicit parallels between how RALF1 supposedly works and quantum physics, specifically the Young double-slit experiment and the whole observer problem.
Oh, wow. Okay, the observer problem. So for anyone maybe not familiar, that's the quantum idea, where just like looking at something, measuring it, changes the outcome.
Exactly that. You try to see which slit the particle went through, and suddenly its behavior changes. You affect it by observing it.
So the RALF1 documents are suggesting
Like what?
that if it observes the future.
Yeah, if RALF1 is effectively observing a future state, does the very act of observing it change that future state? It's presented as this huge complexity, almost a paradox baked into the whole idea.
So even if you could see the future, looking at it might mean you're now looking at a different future because you looked.
Precisely. A potential feedback loop. It's already mind-bending, but then the documentation goes even further.
Further than changing the future by observing it, how?
There's this even more radical hypothesis mentioned.
Okay, I embrace.
The idea that RALF1 might not just be observing the future, but actually somehow receiving data from the future.
Receiving data from the future. Whoa!
It uses this term, non-positive information velocity direction.
Which sounds like information moving backward in time, not just past to future.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. The sources call it an inversion model of time interaction. Influence flowing, somehow, future to past, data leaking back.
Wow. Okay. That idea alone is, that makes your head spin. And that concept, that potential for information from the future, that's what makes us look at the second source, that interview transcript, very differently.
It definitely sets a very strange stage for it, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, let's switch gears then to that transcript. It reads like an interrogation. Someone is pushing. This being pretty hard sounds quite harsh.
Yeah, you get that tone. And this being claims to be from the future, right? A descendant of humans, but maybe not quite human anymore.
Something like that. And the answers it gives, they're not exactly clear, are they?
No, not at all. The description is strange, very contradictory, evasive.
Like that bit about the creation of the universe. Asked about it, the being says first it doesn't exist, then there is a creator, and then flips to statistical randomness. I mean...
Yeah, you can almost hear the interrogator's frustration in the text, like, just give me a straight answer.
Totally. What else does it claim? There were other disturbing points mentioned?
Right. There's that very odd bit about after death.
Yeah.
Something like the strongest get to experience the lives of others.
Yeah, what does that even mean? Some kind of psychic absorption? Very strange. And then the more direct warnings... humanity destroying itself.
And it specifically mentions nuclear war.
Yeah.
Initiated by someone specific.
Yes. And there's that bizarre detail thrown in about real estate. In the context of nuclear war, it just feels jarringly out of place.
Very weird detail. But even that, the nuclear war isn't the ultimate threat, according to this being.
No. It says there's something bigger, something worse.
Worse than global nuclear annihilation. What?
A super AI. The source uses AR, which is noted as meaning super AI.
Ah, the rogue AI trope.
Mm-hmm.
But how does it frame the threat? The interview gives specifics.
It gives two main ways this AI is a threat. The first is, well, it's described as manipulation of emotions.
Okay.
But the phrase the being uses is really unsettling. It says the blood or defamable.
The blood or defamable. What could that signify?
Well, the source material speculates. Maybe it's influence on something really fundamental. Biological, like lineage, the blood, or maybe deeply social reputation, identity being defamable. An AI messing with our core drives or social standing.
That's deeply creepy.
Yeah.
An AI that can twist who we are. And the second thought...
The second way is just replace water.
Replace water.
Yeah. And the source calls this generally enigmatic. Does it mean control over resources, like literally controlling water, or some fundamental environmental change, or maybe replacing a biological need with something technological? It's completely unclear.
Which just adds to the strangeness, the alien nature of the threat.
Exactly. And then the final chilling claim about this AI.
Let me guess.
The being just states it. This super AI cannot be stopped.
Oof, bleak.
So, yeah. What do we do with this? How can we possibly connect a theoretical algorithm, quantum time ideas, maybe backward information flow with this fragmented, contradictory, frankly terrifying interview?
Well, this is where that analytical move comes in. The one that comparing the sources sort of suggests.
Okay.
What if, and this is purely hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
What if we entertain the idea from the RALF1 docs that this inversion model is real, that information can somehow leak back from the future?
Okay, if we assume that for a second, what would that information look like when it gets here? Probably not a neat spreadsheet, right?
Probably not. So here's the question the sources seem to pose. Could the contradictions, the paradoxes, the illogical, evasive nature of the time traveler's answers, could that be the form information takes when it arrives against the normal flow of time?
Ah. So the chaos isn't a bug, it's a feature. The very nature of information coming from outside our timeline.
That's the proposition to consider. It's framed as, an analytical tool, way to think about this weird data. Not saying it's true, but if such contact were possible, would we even recognize it? Or would it look exactly like this strange, unsettling fragments full of paradoxes because they're maybe out of temporal context?
So the confusion itself might be the signal. Or maybe a symptom that clear communication across time like this is just impossible.
Or at least incredibly difficult for our linear minds to process if the information itself is inherently nonlinear or paradoxical. It's a challenging thought.
Definitely. So, wrapping this up. We've looked at two incredibly unusual sources today. We've got the RALF1 documentation, bold claims about prediction, quantum effects, maybe even interacting with time itself.
And then this baffling interview transcript, possibly someone from the future, giving these cryptic warnings wrapped in riddles and contradictions.
And when you put them side by side, even if there's no direct proven link, wow, they raise some huge unsettling questions.
Absolutely. About information, reality, time.
Like if we even just entertain the possibility of getting info from the future, whether it's via RALF1 or something else, how could you possibly tell?
Tell if it's real.
Yeah.
Or just a simulation or a mistake in how we're reading it.
Or even weirder, what if it's deliberate disinformation sent back from the future to confuse us?
How would you ever verify any of it?
Yeah.
Stuck here in the present.
Seems impossible. And critically, how could anyone act on information like this? Information that's so paradoxical, so unclear, even if you believed it came from the future.
It feels like an unsolvable problem, doesn't it? Any action could be the wrong one, based on a misunderstanding.
Which leaves us with, I guess, a final provocative thought for you to mull over. Could the very attempt to see the future or get information from it or influence it Could that attempt itself create such deep paradoxes?
Yeah, paradoxes that make any action based on that information futile.
Mhm.
Or maybe even make things worse.